class. Welcome to my living room. Hope you guys are doing well. This is Drew Hester here. And today I'm going to be showing you how to clean a fish tank. So here we go. I want to make sure that as I'm cleaning, I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about why it's important to clean a certain way and the way that the fish work. I worked at PetSmart for 5 years before I was with my current job. And so I learned a lot during that time about taking care of fish. I actually was in charge of the entire small animals area. So anything from hamsters, birds, lizards, parrots, everything down to the fish and the crickets even was my job. So I learned a lot during that time about caring for fish. On the side, I also had a fish tank cleaning business where I'd go to customers' houses and clean their fish tanks for them if they didn't feel like that was something they wanted to do. So during that time, I learned a lot about cleaning fish tanks. And so today, I want to share with you my expertise on cleaning the fish tank. The first thing about cleaning a fish tank is getting the right tools, getting the right things. The first thing that you need is a 5-gallon bucket, just a simple 5-gallon bucket. We've got over here, we've got an algae scrubber. And the algae scrubber is magnetic. And you'll see why that's important here in a little bit when I wash the inside of the tank. We have vinegar and water mix alongside of paper towels. The vinegar water mix is important because as we wash the outside, it'll wash really well, but at the same time, it's very safe. Even so safe that your 2-year-old son named Matt could spray himself in the face with it and be okay. Trust me, we know. Also, to make sure that the new water that you're going to put in is safe, we have Stress Coat. Stress Coat has dechlorinator in it, and it also has some aloe vera in it. Aloe vera, as many of you know, is good for skin. It's also good for the scales and the skin of the fish, and it helps them to be able to relax. Cleaning the fish tank, removing water, all these things are very stressful for the fish. And so it's important to make sure that we give them back things that are going to help them. Last but not least, we're going to add some Quick Start to the new water also to help build up some good bacteria. So the first thing that you want to do when you actually get to fish in the tank is to shut her down. You want to make sure that it's completely shut off. So that way, one, you don't drop anything electrical into the water. That is not only going to harm you, but it could also definitely harm the fish. So once you get that, the next thing that you want to focus on is you want to get the filter done. Go ahead and get the filter done. And I've asked an assistant here to go ahead and take the filter, which is this back part, and she is going to clean the filter for me as I continue talking to you guys about cleaning the fish tank. So I'm going to put it into the bucket here so it doesn't drop water all the way to the sink, and she is going to take it and run with it. I'm going to make sure that I take off the lid here with the light bulb so we have better access to the tank. Now, I'm not going to remove the heater because if the heater is still hot, one, it could hurt your hand, and two, you also want to make sure that the heater is submerged in water. If not, it can actually break the heater if somehow it's shorted and turned on. So we're going to go ahead and leave that there. So now you've got all this space to work. The first thing that you want to do while everything is still wet is you want to go ahead and take care of the algae on the side of the tank. With our magnetic algae scraper, what we do is we put one side in and then we put the other side on the outside. So it's a magnet, and then all we have to do is we don't even have to get our hands wet for this part. We can just go back and forth down the tank. Now I'm going to go ahead and only do part of the tank right now. And then when it's time after the speech, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the tank. That way you're not sitting here watching me clean the whole tank. Something important to note, though, is it is important to get some type of algae eater fish, something that eats the algae off the sides. It'll really help to keep the health of the tank intact, and it also makes it so that you don't have to clean the algae off very often. So here we go, we're cleaning. You want to make sure you get the sides. By the way, this magnetic thing is excellent. You can get one of those hand scrubbers and get your arm all wet during this process if you want. And you're going to get it wet in a minute anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But this allows for you to be able to get the algae scrubbed off quite nicely. All right. Then once you're done with it, you bring it up here and it splashes you a little bit. Make sure, like myself right now, make sure you're wearing something that you don't mind getting wet and a little dirty. All right. The next step is the gravel. What happens is the gravel, when you feed the fish, extra food falls all the way to the bottom of the tank. When it sits there, it kind of rots. And what it produces out and what the fish after eating produce, so the fish poop, that becomes and creates a lot of nitrites and nitrates. Now, a good tank has a number of nitrites and nitrates, just like anything else. Like there's good bacteria in our mouth. There's good bacteria in our guts. There's good bacteria, a lot of it. So what we want to do is we want to make sure, we want to make sure that as we go through, we're not getting rid of all the good bacteria, which is why we'll only get rid of half the water or so. Now, when you put this gravel vacuum down in the bottom, you're going to want to make sure that you get it started. There's a few ways to do this. One, you can move back and forth really quickly and hopefully it gets started. Or two, you can do the suction method. The suction method has the potential to be kind of gross, but if you're an expert, you do it just fine. You watch the water as it trickles down the tube, and before it starts coming up to here, you lower this so that you have a constant flow downwards. All right, here we go. Let me see if I can do this right without getting stuff in my mouth. Hold on just a second. Nailed it. All right. So as you can see, as we go down, everything kind of picks up. You pick up a lot of this gunk on the bottom there. You can see, I don't know if you guys can in there or not, but there is a lot of material that would be coming up the gravel vac if it hadn't come apart. So as we put it back together and try again, we're going to see a lot of stuff come up through the gravel vac and into the bucket. One more time, let me try. All right, there we go. So now we've got some stuff flowing between here and here. And as you can see, we also want to make sure that we bring all this gravel up. You can see a whole bunch of really disgusting stuff going on. So this is another way that you can do it if your materials aren't working right, is you can just go ahead and move the stuff around. And then when the filter is placed back in, you go ahead and you put the filter back in and let it take care of some of the stuff. While you're in here, you also want to make sure you get the algae off of the ornaments and even off of some of the plants. Now you can see here, these are live plants. They're not fake plants in the fish tank. The reason for that is just like we breathe oxygen that the trees put out and the plants take in the CO2 that we put out, it's the same thing with the fish tank. It creates its own little ecosystem inside of there. So as we clean stuff out, we want to make sure that we still clean it off and make sure that it's all good to go so that the ecosystem can continue to work itself. So we keep moving it around. And once again, I'm only showing you a little bit. I'm not going to go through the whole process. But as we move things around, you can probably tell the water's getting murkier and murkier. Now, the poor fish, unfortunately, have to live in that for a little bit while we get everything figured out. Once you're done with that process and the gravel vac is done and you've gotten a whole bunch of stuff up, you'll be done with about half the tank. You'll be done with about half the water on the tank. And so it's important not to go too low because, once again, that ecosystem is going. And so what happens is if you take too much, the good bacteria in the water disappears as you add more and more. You dilute it. So you want to make sure that you don't take all the water out. One, because it's hard for the fish to live without it. And two, because you want the good bacteria in there. Now, once you're done, then you can go get some water from the tap. Most tap water is safe for the fish. What you do is you get tap water, and I've got a bucket right here. Excuse me while I get it. You've got a bucket of water like this. I end up using my wife's pans, and she loves me for it. So you've got the pan, and what you do is you put in a little bit of the stress coat and some of the quick start. And what that does is it makes sure that the water dechlorinates, so it's safe for the fish. If you don't dechlorinate the water, what can happen is that basically it burns them. So what you do is you follow the directions. It's about 1 drop per 10 gallons. And here it's 1 drop per 20 gallons. So you're only putting in 1 or 2 drops. So you put that in, and then you go ahead and put it into the fish tank. And the fish are safe, and the fish are good, and everything's grand, glorious, and wonderful in their little ecosystem of a home. Now, once you're done, you start putting everything back on. You put the light back on. You put the filter back in once it's all clean. And then you can work on the outside. So you spray the outside. Get a little bit going there. Not a lot. Not very heavy. Just a little bit. And you take the paper towel. And you go ahead and you wipe all the way down. And you don't need that much vinegar at all. And once that process is done, then you wipe off all this, and you wipe off the light. You make sure that everything looks good. You make sure the filters turn back on, and everything's working, and that ecosystem is catching back up. And that is the basics of cleaning a fish tank and why you do it a certain way. The biggest thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that that ecosystem continues to run. You want to make sure that they're living in the same thing that they have been. So thank you guys very much for listening, and I hope it helps you the next time that you have a fish tank.